my name is Phil Mershon. I have a company called Return on Initiative. One of the great things about having my company is that I get to meet all sorts of fascinating people. Most of them are clients, and we have one such today. Right in front of us here, we have Shawna Reed, who is part of the EmFluent organization. Now, people who watch these videos on a regular basis may remember that Robin Reed has joined us a couple of times in the past, and today, very happy to have Shawna to come on and talk to us about a specific area of their business, which is called EmFluent. And Shawna, how in the world are you today?
Good morning, Phil. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me to have a discussion about this. It's something we're definitely passionate about.
Well, I know you are. I know you are, and I want to jump right in here and take some time to talk about this thing. Now, Robin mentioned this to me last time, and I'm familiar with it a little bit, but not anywhere nearly enough to have an intelligent conversation about it. So rather than embarrass myself, I'm going to ask you to talk about this thing that we call talent optimization. What is that, and what do business owners and other executives need to know about it?
Yeah, it's a really big category, a big name. We actually sometimes even refer to it as workforce optimization because that kind of helps people get an idea of we're talking about everyone that's already in your company, right? So we're really looking at how do we optimize, and by optimize we mean how do we increase engagement? How do we obviously in that increase productivity? There's so many things that go into that, and a lot of it starts from the beginning. So it's understanding the people you have. And by understanding the people you have, I actually mean even knowing things like what naturally drives them. So understanding their behavioral drives and how to best utilize them. We just naturally, when we are in line with those ourselves, we do just our productivity, our energy, everything just goes up naturally. So there's a lot of things that we can do once we actually can use analytics to understand who is in your talent pool, and that's including everything from the person who is speaking to your customer every day, someone who's behind the scenes, the executive levels. Everyone has these different drives. And so understanding them makes people more self aware, but then they're actually able to better communicate and, like I said, become more productive. So there's a lot that goes into that. But really, when we talk about optimization, it starts with the very basics of that. And then we're able to build on what's needed and really look then to optimize that. And it is customized to each of our clients based on where they're at and what they need. So it's kind of general, but I know we'll probably dive in a little deeper. But I wanted to tell you, it really is kind of a little bit of everything.
Well, that's fantastic, and workforce optimization. Um, well, okay, so years and years ago, I used to work for a very large company that's right there in the Valley of the Sun. Um, you may have heard it was called American Express. And one of the things that somebody on our team decided would be a really good idea was that every day, somebody in the department had a birthday. And so the managers were instructed to come out and bring balloons to the person and maybe sing a song or something and give them a card and a free movie ticket. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was embarrassing for everybody involved. And after about a year of it, that just kind of lost its thrill because if everybody has a birthday. So if everybody gets the same exact thing on the birthday, the sincerity comes into question, and it didn't work out. So, but I have a feeling that in the ensuing years, things have become much more scientific and a lot more well thought out and executed. Um, and in fact, I'm using the word science deliberately. I get a very strong sense that plays a role in this. This is not just throwing out something and hoping it works.
100%. Yes. So there's obviously different varying degrees as you get into ways to get people, make them feel appreciated, understood, all the different things. But you're right. I mean, even going down to the science of it, that's when I alluded to the idea that understanding people's behavioral drives, that isn't a guessing game. There's actually absolutely science behind it. We actually choose to use a tool that is so simple and so easy. The assessment itself only takes 5 to 6 minutes, and that's intentional. We actually get fantastic results, but the idea is we don't want to. It's not about the assessment, and it's not even about the results themselves. It's what do you do with them? Now that I know this, what do I do with it? And so, to your point, once we have that, there are so many things that can be actually dictating the life cycle of each employee. So, for example, the thing you just mentioned, if I'm a manager, and that's at all levels of management, and we know a lot of times our middle level managers and our supervisors, they tend to get promoted because they were really good at their job, but maybe not given all the tools and extra, I guess, direction in order to know how to now lead the different people that have now been put under their control in terms of just the hierarchy. And these tools can actually help someone to say, hey, I'm going to pull this management strategy guide and understand that, oh, you know what, this person really likes encouragement. This person doesn't actually like public appreciation and all that stuff. Like, that's actually going to feel to them the opposite of what I'm intending. Because that's the funny thing about communication, regardless of where it's coming from. Usually there's good intent behind it. It's just that if you don't have the right information, it can just fall really flat and sometimes even go the opposite direction. So to your exact point, something as well intended as we are going to celebrate each employee's birthday by making kind of a little bit of a spectacle of it, for some people, that is not only not enjoyable, it's actually dreaded. So you've now created a totally different feeling than obviously what was intended by the people who came up with it. So that's a great example. And that's just one of the things that just this one assessment and having this knowledge can actually arm people to make better decisions at every level, even as simple as a birthday celebration.
Wow. Yeah, you said, I wish I had said what you just said. That's about 20 years ago. I wish I said actually. So how does a manager or a decision maker in a particular business go about getting the information they need to be able to optimize their workforce, whether it's in terms of production or something else?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, like I said before, I alluded to the fact that we kind of meet our clients where they're at. And so the reason I said that is because, like I mentioned, just getting them the tool that's the piece that you'll need, but honestly, what you can do within it. So we have some clients where their kind of high need when we met them was, we have one team that is just not cohesive. They can't seem to get things together. So we'll actually go in and even say, we can work with just this team. Like, let's just show you how this works, even starting there. So a lot of times it can just be figuring out what the need is. Now, so far, we have not had any clients who started with something like a team, or even with a maybe even their executive team saying, hey, let's start with this, let's make sure we're all on the same page, where we brought in these tools, we gave them the training, we went through the workshops and really got everyone bought in and understanding kind of who they are and who they work with. Inevitably they find, God, we've got to get this to the rest of the organization, because there's not a single individual that we have employed with us who couldn't benefit from A, knowing about themselves, and B, knowing how to relate to the people around them. It's interesting how you can take something that we kind of might instinctually sometimes understand why we get along with this person or why it's easier to communicate with that person. But interestingly, even in the processes, as we've gone through this with clients and they've started to just create kind of the team discovery piece of it, which seems to be kind of that next level, the appreciation, they feel appreciated, and they actually now appreciate the things they knew about somebody, but maybe they just didn't see it in that light. So where I think this optimization piece really takes hold is, we'll start where you're at, but always knowing that there is room to grow, even with just this same information that we gathered in the beginning. That's kind of the beauty of it, is it can be, we've got packages where it's like, here's all the things we can help you accomplish, and we can do it in phases. Or we've got times where we're like, you know what, I don't want to overwhelm you. What do you need? We can help you with that. And it really is, that's part of the optimization, is we know that not everyone's at that same place, right? So something that maybe is really working, and then there's just that one thing that could just take it to the next level. Or we are starting at ground zero, nothing's working and we need help. So help us where we need, like, what's going to have the most impact now. So I know that's a little bit vague still, but really we help people by identifying what their need is and how we can meet them there and what the kind of rollout of their desired results might look like.
I think, and I don't think that is vague, actually. I think that's very specific and realistic. There are business owners and decision makers who are frequently in a position where they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And often the only thing that they know is that they need to do something because what they're doing is not having the desired effects. You know, you go to business school and you learn about FTEs and full-time equivalents and that kind of thing because, well, you know, compared to the sort of things that you're talking about, it's very fun. So one of the things that I am very interested in asking about then is you had mentioned productivity. So as a business owner or decision maker, how what kind of impact of the changes that you're talking about, the different perspectives, what will that have on the productivity of
Yeah. So, great question. Really, some of it, I mean, there's obviously depending on where we're talking about. So in some cases, if we're talking about something where metrics can be measured because there are certain things that are getting done. So you think more, workers that have, quotas, things like that. So there's obviously a way to be able to measure the productivity increase in those cases. But in some cases, it's just going to be a little bit more about just seeing the way people show up, the way they work together. Some of the productivity that we see, the increase in productivity comes from, well, it's two pieces. One of it's going to be engagement, right? Because there's just something, and I don't care which generation you're from, right? Baby boomer, all the way down to the latest generations that are figuring it out as they come into the workforce. All of us want to be appreciated, right? And by appreciated, like you said, it's not about giving me kudos in public. It's none of that. It's actually this moment where you feel like someone understands you and they know that what you bring to the table, your superpowers, we like to say. Once you know them, and someone's actually said, someone that doesn't even know you, because hey, that would be me, tells you something that they see from this assessment, that read back where we go through and let you know that, okay, I see you, and they're going, wow, okay, yeah. So that proves to me that this is right. So as I'm believing the things that someone is saying about me, because these are things clearly that I actually know deep down are my strengths. Now all of a sudden, when I go and I learn about somebody else on my team who has a completely different set of strengths or maybe similar strengths, there's just a level of belief I have and an acceptance and maybe even appreciation for what someone else brings, because now I'm better even appreciating what I bring. So now if I'm recognizing that that's a real thing and that what I bring is really unique and valuable, then I can't help but see in that lens the people that I'm working with. And when we're different, I start to appreciate that as being a wonderful balance. Because here's the cool part. If I recognize that all the time, I mean, we're adults, we're professionals, we flex, right? When we have to, we meet the need of the work, of the customer, of our boss, whatever it may be. But what if you figured out that someone who's sitting right next to you doing a similar job or the same job or something complementary actually enjoys and gets energized by some of the things that you don't necessarily love, right? I mean, you both are trudging through it. What if there was this wonderful now realization that there are ways you could start to maybe divide up your work or help each other out in a way where you get to lean in on your superpowers and they get to do the same, and everyone feels a little bit more energetic instead of drained based on just the work they're doing. Not only that, they're starting to find this appreciation for the people they're doing it with. So it's not a competition as much of a collaboration and excitement about being a part of something bigger than themselves that is actually going to be better than what they could have done alone. We all want that when we think about teams in our organization, but believe it or not, it's this process that we go through. It happens then organically. And then when we get to that place, kind of going back to your original question, where does that productivity come? When people are just really excited about kind of being themselves now and feeling really proud of that, and they're accepting others and trying to communicate with a more empathetic and awareness about them, it just changes. I mean, all of a sudden communication streamlines. So like I said, productivity goes up, the energy levels go up, engagement goes up. So the thing we like to say, what is engagement? How do I affect it? Believe it or not, you can throw a lot of fun things at somebody. I mean, look at Google or any of those, right? That was their whole thing, is we're going to give you stuff. That only takes you so far. right? That only meets so much of the need. So we are talking about an intrinsic type of motivation and this discretionary effort that otherwise you really can't even demand out of someone. That's what we're looking to get. And it really all does come because of the process of how we start with the person and then the awareness just grows of the people around them. So I know that's kind of a lot there, but that really is how you'll just feel it from the top down or the bottom up.
Do you think that I think nowadays, we have the workforce has changed tremendously, not only in terms of some internal diversity, but also in terms of where the employees happen to be. Where is your workforce? The time was that it was probably all in one building or a series of buildings or whatever, and you walk through and you would manage by walking through. And I think those days are not with us anymore. Half of the people who work for us, for instance, I've never met in person. They're in different parts of this country, and I check in with them every morning and then again every evening, but I don't see them. And so I don't know if they're having a good day or a bad day, unless they bring it up, which I hope that they do. But is I guess the telecommute slash virtual, potentially hybrid nature of the workforce these days, does that exacerbate some of the problems and the lack of information that a manager might have?
Yes, so it's interesting. We have found that now when I'm doing what we call read back, which is where I do read back the individual's results. When I'm having that with them, a lot of times I do actually ask, are they in a building with others? Typically, are they remote? Because to your point, Phil, there's information that it does make a difference. Now, interestingly, for example, we one of the pieces, and I'm one of these that has this high extroversion, right? And so one of the traits of that is that I tend to want to talk ideas out. I want to be able to, walk up to you and just start talking because that's my way of processing. When you're in a building, it's easy to do that. And the unfortunate part is that people who do that, not realizing maybe the person they're talking to tends to be someone who needs time to think things through. They tend to be a little bit more compartmentalized. The idea of me kind of like just jumping in there and just saying what I need to say and then expecting them to respond right that moment, that is not a really good way for me to get what I want out of them, which is hopefully like an opinion or their thoughts, and I didn't give them a chance. So that's what it looks like when you're in person, right? Maybe being a little bit more cognizant of, just because I physically can come and grab you doesn't mean I should because I'm feeling it, right? Maybe it's hey, you know what, Susan, I really want to talk to you about the ideas we had in that meeting the other day. I noticed we're both available at 2 o'clock. I'm going to stick something on our calendar. I just want to give you a heads up, right? So now I've actually accommodated the idea that now that if I know about you, that you might need a little time and a little bit of hey, this is coming. I've given that to you. Now I'm still going to get I want to talk it out when we meet later, but I kind of took you into consideration as well. But now take that into the virtual mode. You just said something very telling. What if, because I don't see you every day and because you're not right in front of me, I don't know that you're someone who really needs a lot of frequent touch points. You feel a little bit disconnected when you don't have that FaceTime with me and an opportunity to maybe work as a team. Or you're someone who I don't want to do every single day because I don't need to do every single, you know what I mean? Like, so it does change the dynamic. The interesting piece is the needs are still the same. The difference is in a virtual world, you may have to think a little bit about what that looks like, because if I'm not being intentional, out of sight can absolutely look like out of mind. And then you could be losing somebody slowly but surely in that engagement and that productivity by something that was, again, not an intentional situation, but it might have taken a little extra work to keep that person encouraged and excited. And you just weren't aware they needed that because maybe others on your team already didn't. So I think that's a wonderful question you asked, because yes, we have found that the same tool can actually accomplish it, but we got to look at it a little differently depending on where everyone's located.
Well, I'm really delighted that you said that, because something that I have come to believe, and not without pain, is that if you have 20 people working for you, or 200 people, or 20,000 people working for you have that same number of different personalities that you are responsible for dealing with, for responding to. And one solution, one approach, what works for one person, like that, your example was terrific. You come in, you're very excited with this idea, and you're looking at their body language to see if they're excited too. But maybe they don't respond immediately. Maybe they're the kind of person who, as you say, processes it. And you look at their lack of enthusiasm as, well, I guess this person get it, or this person just maybe it's not a good idea that I had after all. But in reality, that's not what's happening.
Correct.
That is absolutely fascinating. Huh. So these are things, in my opinion, Shawna, these are things that your average person does not necessarily take the time to think about these and ask themselves. Again, go back to the MBA school. Well, it says right here what I'm supposed to do. Philip Drucker says do this. Well, okay. Sorry, 21st century and all. Um, so how can we learn more about this from you and from EmFluent? How do we best reach out to you and ask the questions and get a consultation?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question because actually one of the things I was remiss to say, but what the way we always suggest that we start any engagement is when we're talking to somebody, even if it's someone we know really well, so another business contact that we've been dealing with for years, but all of a sudden they find this need, is we say, let's just start with, let's have you take the assessment. 5, 6 minutes, and then I offer them an opportunity to do a Zoom read back with me, just as a complimentary. Let's let you see, as the leader, as someone who's considering this, you should experience it, right? You should actually see what it feels like to have this quick, how the data is going to be, how the data is going to be obtained from each person, what it's going to be like for them to hear the insights. And then from there, you can really envision what's possible when I start to show you what some of the tools and training can do for your organization, whether, like I said, be at the executive level or we're starting with a specific team. You kind of need to experience that, because that is really the thing that makes you go, I get it. Again, because it's not about the assessment itself. It's about what I'm going to do with it. And we want to show them what they can do with it. And I think that's easier shown than just explained. So we just offer that as an opportunity so people can at least test it and see if it makes sense for what they're trying to accomplish.
Where do we find this assessment? Because it seems like a terrific idea to me. Where do we
Yes.
find that?
So we actually do have access for you to take the assessment on our website. Also happy to share a link that you can put with wherever you post this as well, Phil, because would love to hear from people and say, hey, here's the way to get a hold of us, but here's the assessment. Try it. We'll send you the report so you can see what the results are. We can do a read back, and then from there we can see, is this something that could make a real difference in your organization, as it has for so many of our clients.
At the end of this video, we're going to actually have that website listed, but I'm pretty sure, trust my memory here, it's EmFluent.com.
Correct.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Um, so, what if there was one piece of advice that you could give a manager or business owner working today? What 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 would you want them to know that they maybe haven't thought about or haven't thought about recently?
Um,
That's a tough one, I know.
I know that is a tough one, but as it relates to just the topic of what we're talking about, I think it's recognizing the idea that people are complex. They're never going to be any simpler than they are. So you need, and your managers at every level need. So really, really good question, because yes, as it relates to the subject we've been talking about today, I think the piece that people could really recognize is that people are complex, and your workforce will continue to be complex. The only thing we can do to try to make things more intentional and help you to get the results you want are to be able to basically take information that some people on your staff and some of your managers may be a little bit more intuitively, oh, I kind of know this about this person. But what we don't really have time to have people who are really, our managers are set to do a very specific job. So if they could be armed with the information that is going to allow them to be the best leaders they can, you hear all the time that people don't leave companies, they leave managers, and there's so much truth to that. And it's usually, again, you said it earlier, the intentions are usually good from the manager, from the people on the team. They just don't know what they're dealing with, and we tend to be people as a race that just do not. We don't assume positive intent. Maybe that's because of the things that in us are supposed to look out for danger. So we kind of need to be spoon fed the information that helps us understand that it's not always about us. Sometimes it's about the other person. And if we all can appreciate not only ourselves and what we bring, but what the others around us do, the contentment and ability to really flourish is there. And so I would just tell leaders, take a step, try it, because really you will find that arming your HR teams or whatever with the right information and tools really will be transformational for your organization.
Wow. Very, very well said. Shawna Reed, thank you so much for taking time to join us today and to talk to us and to actually enlighten us on some very, very important points. Um, would you be interested in coming back in a while and talking to us again?
Absolutely. I love this. This is why we do it. It's our passion.
All right, thank you. Ours too. Um, Shawna Reed, EmFluent. Have a fantastic day, young lady. We will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.